a light that will shine, shine, shine on your mind, mind, mind. Yeah, so bright, 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 that will shine, shine, shine. Bright, 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 bright on your mind, mind, mind. Yeah, so bright, 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 bright.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, Brien. How are you?
Thank you, Stefan. I'm fine. How are you?
Good, good. It's a pleasure to have you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, seems fine.
Oh, great. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, such a pleasure to have you, Brien. Oh my gosh, really can't believe we're having you here.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're a huge inspiration for us, huge example for us. Many years we have been following your work already, and you are really such an example for us how to live the life of your dream. Which is gathering the work and all the passions and hobbies into one, and to investigating everything, to working with interesting people, traveling around, communicating, and what's the most important, just bringing that ancient knowledge into present to help to change the situation to the better side. So it's really very inspiring. So thank you a lot for that and for having a time for our show.
Oh, it's my honor to do this. Thank you.
Yeah, so okay, we would like maybe to introduce Brien Foerster for our listeners who maybe some of them don't know who Brien is. So Brien is a famous ancient world explorer, biologist, investigator, author of many ancient numerous books, ancient tour guide as well. He's a traveler and philosopher, and Brien is a researcher of ancient cultures, especially famous for his elongated scroll findings in South America and Peru. And Brien has become an authority on the megalithic works of South America and the perplexing ancient elongated-headed people of the area, and divides his time between Paracas, Peru, and Cusco. And what's very fascinating that Brien wrote already 15 books, and really it just shows how active he is and how investigates his work a lot. So for the listeners, you can go and check his works at this page, which is www.hiddenincatours.com, and also just go and check his books at such pages like Amazon.com, and as well also read his articles at grahamhackovspage.com as well. So just like working together with many other investigators as well. So, Brien, maybe you first of all would like to introduce our listeners about your Hidden Inca Tours page. What are you doing? Because it's really fascinating, and just to share how everything started on that page, how you gather all those knowledges together in one. So.
Well, my wife and I basically started the tours, which we only do part-time, because we wanted to share what we have discovered with people. Of course, most people can't come to Peru, but those who do, we've had 100% of those people see the obvious evidence of lost ancient high technology, and that some of the structures in Peru are far older than the cultures like the Inca that most archaeologists think made them.
Yeah, interesting. And also, like, we're always asking our guests how everything started in your life, when you decided to take this path of researcher, because we also know that you are not only a scientific person, but you're also an artist, and you also are a sculptor. So how everything started for yourself, how you gathered all those spheres in your life and decided to take this path.
It basically started in childhood. I was very fascinated growing up on the west coast of Canada with the native people and their thousands of years of culture. And since, being of European descent, my people had only lived in Canada for maybe 100 years. And so I had to look towards the native people in order to understand the environment in which I was living. And that's just developed more or less into a global study and respect of native indigenous people and their wisdom and knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing to mention, your YouTube channel is phenomenal. You know, you can go there and you film a lot of the stuff right there firsthand and explain right there. It's almost, for us people that can't travel
Mm-hmm.
around all the time and investigate stuff. It's just wonderful just to be able to go into the Great Pyramid with you, Giza, and these for actually such a long time that you were there and go below it, just phenomenal footage. And yeah, if you haven't checked out his YouTube channel, go to Brien Foerster on YouTube.
Well, thank you. The whole thing about the videos, again, is that I have been able to travel and visit these places, and I didn't want to be selfish and keep it all to myself. So that's why I started making videos, just because I wanted to be able to share what I was experiencing, and now I have about 700 videos on my YouTube channel, and I'm very happy that so many people around the world are enjoying sharing my experiences.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you actually in a few days you're going on your next trip, so we just caught you here right in the middle. What are you working on recently? Where's it going to?
Well, actually, right now I'm working on my 16th book, which is about the elongated skulls of Peru and Bolivia and how they, in terms of history, how they relate to one another. And then on the 22nd of this month, I'm going to explore ancient Mexico for a week and then go to Egypt for our annual tour of the ancient sites of Egypt, and then coming back and to the United States. Then I may go to Florida and visit what's called the Coral Castle, which is a modern megalithic wonder. And then after that, finally return back to Peru.
Wow,
Wow.
sounds like an awesome tour. Yeah, we were just talking about the Coral Castle with our
David
last
Clark.
guest and investigated some stuff. So that'll be fun to catch up with some news about that.
Yeah. And how your work with elongated schools is proceeding now after, those few last years. Have you found something interesting, something new, something maybe new that helps us to understand more about that Paracas culture and how they lived in those areas?
Well, the amazing thing is that there were many cultures in ancient Peru that had elongated skulls, and so what the book is is trying to figure out is how or if these different cultures were related. So I'm looking at the geography and the timeline, and trying to develop the relationships of one to another, and it's becoming very interesting. We're also finally going to do some very extensive DNA testing of the Paracas skulls, which has taken a long time because we need, of course, government permission and that sort of thing. But that's progressing very quickly too. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, everybody is waiting for these kind of news. What is up with that DNA?
Yeah.
Incredible.
And have you ever done such investigation about the elongated skulls, for example, in Egypt? Because we see in the sculptures like Pharaoh Akhenaton, he had such very interesting shape of his head as well, and some few others, of the pharaohs had such features. So have you ever done investigation there, not only in South America but in Egypt as well, related to
Yes.
those elongated skulls?
Yes, exactly. It's very curious because Akhenaten was a very mysterious person, and I think what his skeleton has never been found, and I've seen the members of his family which are in the Cairo Museum, as well as Tutankhamun, who was his relative, and so he seems to have been symbolizing more the elongated skull than saying that he actually had that. And so I think what he's trying to say in the sculptures and other art is that he is descended from a very ancient line of beings that looked, that looked like the depictions of the elongated skulls.
Hmm.
Yeah, a large part of the Egyptian stuff was moved to Germany, right? I was lucky to see some stuff there. Actually, the original Nefertiti is there, and that is pretty impressive. And some of the sarcophagi. Um,
Well, and also, oh, sorry, but also
yeah.
the great mystery is the fact that you're not allowed to photograph in the Cairo Museum at
Mm,
all. And also, they only have on display a small percentage of all of the artifacts they have. So we have no idea what they're actually hiding in their warehouses and in the basement of that building. And there could very well be elongated skulls, skeletons that they don't want people to know about.
Hmm. Yeah. So why do you think they're hiding that from the society? What can be, the agendas behind that?
Basically, it's in many countries you have that. You have a certain people are trying to control what history was supposed to be, but what we've seen from the megalithic work and the obvious examples of lost ancient technology, that there were very advanced civilizations existing in places like Egypt and Peru thousands of years before most archaeologists um, want to be truthful about. And so that's another reason why I like to travel and make the videos and books and things, and make them all available to everybody on the planet, so that any new discovery, thanks to the internet, we can immediately show new evidence of what is being hidden.
mm, indeed.
Talk a lot about the lost civilization, which didn't survive, many of them, the Great Flood, and also here pops the another, myth about the Atlantis. I know many people say it was an island, the others say just other opinion has about that, but maybe it wasn't the island, maybe it was a whole planet as such, and people as such, as ourselves. Like also we have a myth about the Atlas, which was the son of Ether and Gaia, and he basically what they said that he were holding the celestial spheres or the pillars, and he was holding basically the stone structures, not something else, not metal, but stone structures. And what we basically find in our today's world left by our ancestors are stone structures like temples, like pyramids made from stone. So maybe it's also myth, but showing to not the lost island, but those ancestors which were able to move those stones and to encode some knowledge in them. So what do you think about that myth of Atlas and Atlantis?
Well, the problem with the story of Atlantis is that everyone looks to Plato as being the authority, and of course he got that information from someone else called Solon, who got the information from the Egyptians, who got the information from someone else, and so what I honestly think happened, and we have scientific evidence for this, is that 12,000 years ago there was a global catastrophe that rapidly ended the Ice Age. It's not like the Ice Age took 1,000 or 10,000 years to end. According to geologist Robert Schoch, the world's oceans may have risen by over 100 meters in less than 2 weeks, or possibly a little bit longer than that. And so that would have caused any civilization living near the ocean to be immediately buried underwater. So I think the story of Atlantis is the story of global maritime civilizations who suffered this massive catastrophic event. Their cities were buried, and so they had to escape to other places in order to rebuild civilizations. And it's amazing that many countries will not allow you to dive on sensitive sites on their coastal areas because of all of the evidence of underwater buildings and temples in many parts of the world.
Like also we have Eastern Island, it's if we will take a look when before the flood, and we will see that Eastern Island was the mountain and was the top of the mountain, which we have now, which earlier was only a mountain before the flood. So
That's true. And also, if you look at the Hawaiian Islands, if you lower the sea level of the area around Hawaii by 100 meters, almost all of the islands are actually connected to one another, like one giant island. And again, because of the presence of the American Navy and military there, you're not allowed to do diving in most places in Hawaii because they say it's for military reasons, but they could very well also be hiding evidence of structures underwater.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, aren't there some in Japan as well?
Yeah, there's an island called Yonaguni where there are structures underwater, and also when the big tsunami happened in Southeast Asia, there were fishermen who said that they saw major buildings underwater because before the tsunami struck the land, it caused the tide to go out, exposing all of these ancient buildings. And the Indian government, for example, will not allow you to dive in those areas because, I think they're trying to cover up the evidence.
I think I heard there were some investigations going on, and then they got kicked out, right? It got kind of shut down, the whole operation.
Yeah, actually, Graham Hancock was the one. He spent a lot of money hiring boats off India and also in the Mediterranean. And he was, just before he was, after he'd probably paid for the boat and was about to go out, then a government official would come and say, no, you're not allowed to dive today. Basically trying to bankrupt him so that he wasn't allowed to, to dive, and then trying to discourage him from continuing.
Mm-hmm. So basically, government knows that something is down there, so they're doing such things. They are aware.
Yeah, but the gift we have is because it's easy to have a camera now or a video camera and access to the internet. It's very difficult for anyone to try to hide this information anymore because it's open to all of us.
And have you ever done the investigations in Mexico and Mexican pyramids? Have you ever been there? Done investigations there?
I have, but that was about 15 years ago, before I was really that interested. And so, for the week that we're going to spend there, we're going to concentrate on the ancient Toltec and Olmec sites, and I think we'll find evidence that the Toltec people and Olmec people and Aztec people built their buildings on top of megalithic foundations.
And also in Peru, in one of your videos, I saw a very interesting stone. It looked like I don't know, city map or something like that. Like it was called like Sayuti, or I can spell that properly. So still archaeologists can't explain what properly that is, but it looks like a map for certain cities. So can you explain more about that, what you saw when you were close to that stone? You said not only one of them were there, but many of them, and they look like, maps of the cities.
Yeah, the thing is, there's only one of those in all of Peru, which is very strange because you would think that any culture would build, different copies of different things, and it's not just the one stone, and that's the case in Peru and Bolivia. If you find something which is very interesting and ancient, you really have to walk around the entire area, and you'll find more. It's just there's very little local knowledge about who built these things and when. At the Sayhuite site, there's a massive stone that you probably saw in the video that was broken in half, and that looks like some kind of major catastrophe happened in the area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fascinating. And not only one of them, many of them are in that area. So just like.
Oh, many. When I first started looking around Cusco for some of these stone sites, I was told by a local expert that there were probably at least 5,000 of them. but they're all over, in the mountains, behind the mountains, in the valleys. Just a massive number of these ancient constructions.
Mm. Yeah. Have you ever been to Turkey to Gobekli Tepe, the new site which was opened by archaeologists recently?
Not yet. I was supposed to go last autumn, but I'm hoping to go not this year but next year with Hugh Newman and Andrew Collins. Turkey is, from all the photographs I've seen, is one of the most fascinating countries on the planet, because there are so many ancient stone structures there, as well as, of course, the cities that are underground and lots of different things.
Yeah, no doubt. And also, what's very interesting that those pillars in Gobekli Tepe, they're with the shape of T. And also, when we look at the Palenque, for example, Mexico, and their sites, the pyramids and etc., we see always very, almost very often on their walls, we have the shape of the T carved there. So it's like T is everywhere in the ancient culture. So maybe you thought something about that. Why is it like that?
That's a very good question that I honestly can't answer. The most interesting thing about Gobekli, which those who have not heard of it before, is the fact that it seems that it was buried on purpose. Mm-hmm. Not the result of some kind of catastrophe, but it seems like people decided to hide it. And as you said, it was only discovered. And what they've excavated so far is they've found out a very small part of it. It's quite a massive site of a number of different circles made out of stone.
And how old can that be, as far as scientists can say?
I think they are saying conservatively that it's 12,000 years old. So that makes it 6,000 years older than the oldest culture that conventional academics, wish to talk about.
Yeah. Can change all the books of history,
Yeah.
Yeah, and also another site in Indonesia, Gunung Padang as well, is also buried under many surfaces, and many layers. So really fascinating. Also talks about the ancient times.
Right. Well, I'm sure there are many other places too, where, wherever you've had human occupation for a long period of time, and where you have, stone present, you will find fascinating constructions that, were either buried on purpose, like Gobekli Tepe, or were the result of some kind of catastrophic event. So we will discover many other things in the I think in the next few years, and be able to share it with one another, thanks to the gift we have of the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you, when in one of your presentations in Egypt, you said you were looking at a stone that has cutting marks, right? And you were talking about the possibly tools that could have been used. Do you got any new info on that kind of stuff? On the tools that were used to cut these huge things and how?
Well, that's why we're going back in March again to to document them even more than before. What we have learned from engineers is that there are many drill holes in the stone, and the curious thing is that the kind of drill that was used is actually more efficient than what we have in the 21st century. Which is very curious. So whoever was doing this ancient drilling and also cutting with saws, they had technology of a level which is superior to what we have today.
Yeah, now the question pops: why they made such a huge effort, to build such huge structures aligned to all the planets, to all the zodiac signs as well. So why they made such huge efforts to build those things, if not to maybe send some messages for us, for the future generations.
Well, actually, I think some people are looking for things like the presence of a hall of records under the Sphinx, or things like that, or tablets with writing on them. But it's actually the buildings themselves are trying to tell you how they were made and when they were made, and that's why again we do the tours as scientific explorations more than tours for tourists. And so we always get a number of people like engineers and geologists coming with us who give us new insights into the evidence that we're looking at.
Yeah. And what can you tell? Maybe you found out something more about that chamber in the king's chamber. Was some drilling in the wall, and they sent some robot there to go look what's in there. So, and after that everything stopped, and everything was shut down. So maybe something is happening there now, not in the society eye, for example.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was called Upawat, that went up through the shafts and came to an end, and then they were able to drill a hole through, and they found out that there's an open area behind that. What I'm hoping is that Egypt will start to open up more to investigation, because they honestly can't. They can't stop people from researching, and there are so many obvious signs of very sophisticated ancient technology there that they will have no choice at some point but to allow much deeper investigations to happen, because too many people are interested in this from all over the world.
And also the pyramid is very interesting, and not every tourist knows that the pyramid is not four-sided, it's actually eight-sided. So it's very interesting and not very well known by the people.
Well, that's true. And also what most people don't know is that there are a number of tunnels underneath the Giza Plateau. I've been down 3 levels underneath the Giza Plateau, and I've been told there are many more of them. There are also these shafts that go down and connect with the tunnels, and thankfully, with the people I know in Egypt who were born and grew up there, they have access to sites and information that almost no one else has, and that's why we work with them at least once a year, because Egypt is one of the most fascinating ancient cultures, or ancient countries in the world.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And have you done any investigation, for example, in East, in India, in China, and their sites as well?
Not yet. I'm really fascinated with some photographs I've seen in India. I think there's one place called the Barabar Caves, and they looked like they were definitely cut with some kind of very sophisticated ancient technology. The walls are almost like, they're so finely polished, they're like mirrors. And how that could not have been done by some primitive people. It had to have been done with very sophisticated technology.
Have you done anything with cymatics and the sounds in the pyramid?
We're actually only starting to do that. Yusuf Awiyan, who's the expert guide of the area, he actually lives across the street from the Sphinx, and his father was a world famous guide in Egypt. He knows how to strike the right tone with his voice to make all of these different chambers resonate. And so what we're going to be doing in the future is bring scientific instruments in as he's doing this, in order to measure what the actual frequencies are that these different chambers respond to, because different chambers seem to like different sounds. It's not like it's all one specific tone. They seem to have been shaped and tuned to respond to very specific frequencies.
Hmm. And that's where it kind of goes into the spiritual part of it and the meaning of these cymatic patterns and vibrations and what they do to our matter. Kind of uniting this right and left hemisphere stuff, and that, I mean, that must have been some part of um, you know, of how to work with these tools. And we
Yeah, I
just,
think that.
yeah, keep
Yeah,
going.
no, I think definitely the problem we have is that I honestly think that that whoever did this, did all of this construction were far more intelligent than we are, and so we try to figure them out from our limited our limited capability, and honestly from our limited forms of technology. So we think, well, this had to have been done with this kind of tool, or something that we understand. But it seems very clear, especially if you spent in something like the Great Pyramid, that in fact, as soon as you enter the Great Pyramid, you move into an alternate state of consciousness. And I think that the part of the function of it was that they were giant vibrational machines. I think that they were designed to set up almost like a force field around them, to alter the local environment, so that when you were in their presence, you could access levels of mental state and knowledge that otherwise would be impossible. So they were like, I think they were consciousness enhancing mechanisms.
Well, yeah.
Hmm. And how does this, I mean, if that possibility is there, and another reason for building the pyramids could be a power plant of some sort. How does that come together in such a way?
Well, that's mainly Christopher Dunn's theory. The Great Pyramid was one, like not the only one, but it was the power plants. And when you visit Egypt, there are many different pyramids there, but there are only maybe 10 which were built with incredible sophistication, that were, where you can't fit a piece of paper in between the stones. Many of the other ones that we know were built by the dynastic Egyptians are in fact made of mud brick. And so they were, they could very well have been tombs, but the ones that are solid stone appear to be thousands of years older than the dynastic Egyptians, and they seem to be energetic structures, possibly powered by water traveling through this tunnel system underneath the whole Giza area.
Yeah, and it really resonated with me when you said that they were far more, sophisticated than we are. Because, for example, Egypt knew the water systems, Greece knew water systems, even Rome knew, and had their aqueducts, and then something happened during Middle Ages when we forgot everything, and we got many diseases because of we didn't know how to clean our cities and etc. We just forgot that knowledge. So it just shows how something happened, and they knew that, and it shows like, they were really more sophisticated than we are even today.
Yeah, I think so. And also, when you look into mythology, for example, in Greece, they talk about the Titans, who were these, quote unquote gods. But it could very well have been that the Titans were a very sophisticated form of humanity that were devastated by this ancient cataclysm. And then, then the civilization plunges into ignorance and rebuilds itself, and then possibly goes through another catastrophe and then rebuilds itself. But it always loses a lot of the knowledge during these dark phases. Like, as you say, the Middle Ages was a terrible period, when before that there were very sophisticated societies that, whose evidence we can still see today.
Yeah. Sounds like cosmic cycles, of sleeping, again awakening. So
I think so, and I think that's exactly what we're entering now. Is we're entering a very rapid period of growth, and that's why a lot of institutions are starting to collapse, like the banking system and governments and religion are starting to crack and fall apart because in some ways they're not needed anymore, because we are waking up to the fact that we are far more profound than what we've been taught. And this is the education system that we've been given almost everywhere on the world, in a way has been a mechanism to try to control and limit what we know and understand. But again, thanks to the technology that we do have now, we're able to discover all of these we're starting to understand these ancient histories, and hopefully in some way be able to use that information, such as free energy, for the future.
Yeah, to learn and not to do the same mistakes, maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also it's really possible, because we have huge example in Coral Castle in Florida as well. We have example with a person who did that in our times, and we can learn that, to chase his history maybe, and to learn how to do that, to raise those stones, because it's possible.
Well, exactly, and what people have to understand about the stone is that, at least in the case Peru and Bolivia, whoever was doing this ancient work, they didn't just look for any kind of stone. They always looked for stone that had very high quartz crystal content, and that's why in these structures you find that the stone of a specific building or enclosure was always made from stone from one specific place. It wasn't just different stone put together, because they were trying to set up some kind of harmonic vibration, I think. And what exactly they were doing with it, I don't know. But it seems quite clear that that their intent was to set up some kind of vibrational energy or energetic field or experience.
Yeah. Yeah, and also you reminded me about the crystal skulls, and Klaus Donner did such investigation about them. So have you ever tapped into that topic, or have you ever,
No, actually, I haven't yet. But a very good friend of mine, Stephen Mailer, who is coming to Egypt with us, and he's an expert on the pre-dynastic period of Egypt. He spent 20 years studying the crystal skulls, and he's actually written a book about them. And he's a very intelligent man. He's both left and right-brained, and he believes that there is information encoded into the quartz of the authentic crystal skulls, and that if you have the ability, you can access that information.
Yeah, and also those skulls are not only usual shape of the skull, but also elongated ones as well.
I believe so. I've only seen photographs of a few of the authentic ones, so it's not really something that I know that much about.
And back to the elongated skulls, the deformation, there's some evidence that it is not a manual application of some sort, like they do in Africa, right? What's the evidence there?
Well, David Hatcher Chris and I wrote a book, I think 3 years ago, about what's called formation, which is where different cultures all over the world, especially about 2,000 years ago, they would bind the head of the royal babies in order to create this elongated shape. And so when you look at it on a global perspective, with all of these different cultures, the common denominators are that they say or said that they thought that elongated look was attractive, A, and B, they thought it increased the intelligence of the children, but more importantly, C, that is what their ancestors looked like. And so my great quest has been to look, I've looked at hundreds of elongated skulls, and there's a small percentage of them that would be almost impossible to create by some kind of artificial binding or any kind of wrapping technique. They look like they're natural, And especially there's one in the highlands of Peru in a small museum that's gone through a number of clinical tests, and all of the doctors that looked at the skull, which is the size of the child, it was supposedly a child, but the skull is the size of the torso. It's huge, and all of the doctors, said, I've never seen anything like that before, and also looking at the skull, they said that skull appears to be natural, as if it was born that way. So that's what I'm trying to find, are as many examples of that as possible.
Mm. Yeah, and also another interesting fact about South America, I don't know if it's true or it's not, it's true, they're finding the huge skeletons of the people, many meters in height. So have you ever, investigated such things, especially in Ecuador, as far as they found many of them.
I'm sorry, found what?
Huge skeletons of people, and I don't know if that's a fake or that's a real investigation. So, but there is some facts that they found huge skeletons.
Yeah, I've heard that they have, but the problem is I've never seen a good photograph, and it's so easy for people to fake photographs. But I think there's quite strong evidence that, at least in North America, that there were races of I don't know if they were giants, but they were very tall people, probably at least 7 feet or 8 feet tall, that had red hair, which is not a native characteristic. But the problem again is that the Smithsonian Institution had this question about them, and so whenever one would be discovered, someone from the Smithsonian or other major museum would go and collect them, and they are supposedly in storage in Washington, D.C. Again, because they don't fit the model of Darwinian evolution, or for that matter, creationism. So there are powers that don't want this information to be revealed, but that's unfortunate for them, because they will have to deal with the fact that we are, as a group, a large group of people, we are unraveling this information very fast, and because we can distribute the information immediately through the internet, there's no way of stopping this research.
Yeah. Yeah, and also mentioned that you find, elongated skulls with red hairs, and also Graham Hancock that did an investigation about the Neanderthals, and he said that their hair patterns usually were also red. So how can that maybe is somehow interconnected, with Caracas people, their hairstyle, their hair color, and Neanderthals?
Well, we're actually, as part of the DNA testing, we're also going to do a study of the red hair itself, and we have possibly the world authority on ancient hair in the United States, who has accepted the idea of studying samples that will be sent to him, and so he'll be able to tell us if the hair is genetically red, or if it is the result of extreme age. And if it turns out that the hair is natural red, then again, that changes the whole history of the Americas, because that means that people other than what we call Native Americans were living in North and Central and South America in the past. And actually, even to this day, once in a while in the highlands of Peru, I will meet someone who has this very specific dark red hair, and they get a little embarrassed, but I do go up to them and ask, is your hair natural or have you dyed it? Mm. And usually they say, no, this is my family's hair color. And these are native looking people.
Interesting. Yeah. And also, if that hair is natural, so it's also very interesting why Great Britain, for example, has such huge amount of people who are red hairs as well. And also, as we saw, and how Graham Hancock investigated the maps, and we saw that such small island once in very ancient map was near South America. So, all those shifting of the lands, etc. And it just shows us that many years had passed, since that time. So it's very ancient civilization.
Yeah, that's true. And also, what's important to consider is the idea that people have been able to sail on the oceans for a long period of time. And so people didn't necessarily uh, enter North and Central and South America by crossing over a land bridge from Siberia. They may have actually been smart enough to build a boat. And that's my theory, is that I think people were traveling the world's oceans for several thousand years. And even I think that was part of the ignorance of the Middle Ages too, because it wasn't until Columbus, was bold enough to try to sail a great distance. Before that, everyone was told, the world is flat. If you travel too far, you'll fall off the edge, or you'll be eaten by dragons. I think that was the powers that be trying to stop people from discovering the fact that the world was much larger than what they thought, and trying to keep people in a very small area. But once Columbus and the Vikings before, et cetera, were able to show that the world is much bigger, and the fact that these ancient maps still exist, which were based on even older maps, people were able to map this planet a long time ago.
Yeah. Even very funny thing, how it shows that they were interconnected, all those civilizations like China, like South America as well. They all talked about the dragons, snakes, and etc. And we see dragon depictions in China, we see in Scandinavia as well, and we also see in South America in pyramids, when in certain times at the equinox we see the snake as a shadow, just going down from the pyramid side. So it's just like, really, it shows the evidence that everything was connected.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, people may have heard of what is called the plumed serpent. And there are three symbols which are very common, especially in Central America and South America, or at least three animals. And those are the serpent or snake, the puma or jaguar, and the eagle or the condor. And if you look at the deeper meanings of what these things meant, they're actually the three levels of consciousness. So the snake represents the subconscious, the puma or jaguar represents the conscious, and then the eagle or condor represents the superconscious. And so the idea of the plumes, these ancient masters who were called the plumed serpents, probably just represents people who lived in the distant past, who were incredibly intelligent and had all three of their levels of consciousness so well interconnected that they were the holders of knowledge and the great teachers of the distant past.
Yeah, and even it now also connects to the other metaphor. For example, as we have in Bible, we have tree, we have serpent, we have Eve, and and we have Adam. Also, that trinity of the same things, only in allegorical ways.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing about mythology, is that you can't try to read the symbolism directly with your left brain, because they were written in a poetic way. So you have to be able to decode what the poetry is, and that's where the really deep story is. Again, for example, Atlantis, they say the continent sank, but that could be a poetic way of trying to explain that the water rose and made the land disappear, which again is the event that we know happened 12,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And which theory, what happened 12,000 years ago? What's the one that's most compelling to you?
Well, from what I've read, there are 3 or 4 major theories that they all talk about the same time period. They talk about 11,700 to 11,900 years ago. And one of them is by Paul de Laviolette, who's a physicist. He believes that the center of our galaxy is not a black hole, like most astrophysicists think. He thinks it's actually a pulsar, and that once every 12 to 13,000 years, which is half of a precessional cycle, or half of the great year, it actually emits energy. And that energy, which is lethal or deadly, travels across the galactic plane and can upset planets, can upset comets, and all sorts of things. And so that energy field could have come straight through our planet and caused this devastation. Another theory by Dr. Robert Schoch is that the sun emitted ejections of plasma, and the plasma came down like plasma lightning onto the planet, again at the same time period. There's another theory that it was a comet that either struck the Earth or came very close to the Earth at the same time. Or it could be that all of this all happened at the same time as the result of this burst of energy from galactic center, that it caused the comets to go off course. It caused, the energy going straight through the sun actually pulled the plasma out and struck the Earth, causing the Ice Age to end incredibly rapidly. But the great thing is that there are many, many scientists now working on this. And so we're building up quite a convincing case that this catastrophic event happened, and that was the fall of what we call what they say in mythology about the golden age, that there truly was a golden age, but it came to a very violent end. And most people spent the next 5,000 or 6,000 years trying to rebuild themselves. I think that's when the so-called caveman period was. It wasn't that we were living as people in caves for 200,000 years. I think the event of 12,000 years ago caused the destruction of almost all of the environment, and therefore people spent a long period of time surviving. Many of the great experts and knowledge keepers would have died. And so it's been a slow rebuilding process to bring us to a reasonably enlightened state of consciousness at this point.
And what native people today, for example, talk about the myths of Quetzalcoatl, for example, about the gods who came on the boats?
Yeah, well, actually, you have three in Central and South America. You have three different characters. You have Quetzalcoatl, you have Kukulkan, and you have Viracocha, and they're all described again as the plumed serpent or the winged serpent. And again, I think that is poetry describing people of very advanced mental and spiritual intelligence that could have been those that the great ones that were able to survive the Cataclysm and came as the great teachers to try to bring humanity back up from a level of survival and ignorance into a higher state of being.
Yeah, that is definitely accelerating at the moment that we're remembering and coming together. Great times we live in.
Well, there's a lot of destruction going on, as being discussed, like the breakdown of the global banking system, the governmental collapse, people losing interest in organized religion. But I think these are natural processes that have to happen in order for us to move forward. You have to have, to some degree, destruction before you can have reconstruction. I think that's the process that we're entering into now as a global family of people.
Yeah. And you, Brien, you were traveling throughout many places in our world, and you have been communicating with our native people, and you maybe ask them what they think about the future of our humanity, because we see the deforestation of Amazon and all those really, really bad things happening. So what those people who are living actually in those areas are saying, do they see some hope, or what do they see?
I think, I think in general what they're saying, I think it's too late, or many of them are saying it's too late for them to try to teach anybody anything. You have to wake up now. The planet is going through some very major changes, but the power of this, of Mother Earth, this planet, is far more profound than us. We're just this little creation living here. No matter how much we try to, either on purpose or by accident, create problems for all of the global ecosphere, this planet has been through incredible devastation in the past, and she will survive, I think, quite well. It's just she's trying her best to adapt to our stupidity. But I think we I the process of waking up to this, and I see a good future for us. I'm glad people are waking up to it now, because people have been in a state of self-designed ignorance for a long time, and I see hope for us in the future.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, Brien, we're just about at the 1 hour mark. Would you like to talk about your upcoming book a little more, or is there anything you would like to mention?
I have a brand new website, which is I'm very happy with. It's www. Sorry, I'll start that again. www.hiddenhumanhistory.com, and basically it's a database of all of my information, a lot of videos, articles, photographs, links, etc. And I built it in order to give people access to a database of ancient knowledge, and I'm hoping that other researchers will add their contributions to it, so that we can have a global database of all of this information, where people can go to this one place and be able to access an incredible amount of information without having to look through different search engines and things.
Beautiful. Thank you for doing that. It's amazing.
Yeah, wonderful. That's where it's going. Thank you so much for your efforts.
No, my pleasure.
We are looking forward to more stuff coming up. We're gonna be on your YouTube channel, and we're also looking forward for your book release at some point. And thank you very much for your time. It was great having you.
Well, thank you very much.
I know you are the light that will shine, shine, shine on your mind, mind. Yeah, so bright, that will shine, shine, shine. Bright, on your mind, mind. Yeah, so bright.